Welcome once again to Exit Strategy, the podcast that asks comedians, what would you do with your life if you were no longer pursuing comedy? Welcome once again to the show. We've got a topical one for you today. My guest today is Sara Benincasa. Sara is a comedian, an actress, and also an author. She's written several books, but the book that I wanted to talk about was one that she came out with a few years ago. It was called Real Artists Have Day Jobs, and it's all about the concept of pursuing creative fields that give you fulfillment on a personal level and on a creative level, but then also you have to supplement those with a job that pays the bills. You've got to make the rent, and sometimes your art doesn't do it. And I think that we all need to come to terms with the fact that art is not necessarily a financial windfall for a lot of us, and we need to be okay with that, because recently, Cosby Show actor Geoffrey Owens was sort of, I would say, clickbait shamed merely because he had a job at Trader Joe's, and that was enough to sort of entertain the notion that perhaps he had fallen from grace, that perhaps this was a step down for this man working a regular job. And it became sort of a Twitter discussion point, and I think that I wanted to definitely talk about it on this podcast because, as you may have heard in other episodes, we have touched on that subject of somebody who is perceived as being successful in the entertainment business, has amassed TV credits, and has amassed a career that seems on the outside looking in as success, and perhaps that they've made it, and that the mere fact that they're on television would indicate that they have no more financial worries in their lives. And I think we've come to find out that that is absolutely not true. And not only that, I think that in our society we've started to devalue a lot of our entertainment and art fields as they move into a digital space, and we grapple with how we compensate people for what they do for the entertainment of everyone. So I wanted to talk to Sara about this, and I really wanted to dig into this subject because I think that this is finally on the national stage, something that I think that us in the entertainment world have sort of kind of noticed. You see a lot of comedians out there that are successful, seem like they're doing all right. They're on television. Perhaps they're making it into festivals, getting really good gigs. But then also, oh my God, they drive Lyft too. How could that possibly be? Well, it's because what we do is not necessarily valued in a financial space, though it is valued on an artistic level. And we have to come to terms with that weird gap between those two worlds. And we do. And Sara and I get into it, and we talk about it. It gets real. Had a real fun time talking to Sara, and I think that you are going to enjoy it. Why don't I give it to you right now? Here you go. This is Sara Benincasa on Exit Strategy.
I did a pilot. Tell me if you think this is a good idea for a show. I did a pilot for Earwolf that didn't go. It was called The History of Sex, and it was they wanted it to be more fully produced than I did. I wanted something more just like this, but we did a whole thing. They flew me to New York. It was like way elaborate.
Yeah.
And then they didn't like it. And I was like, yeah, dude, I know. It was too expensive. I told you.
I could have done it for my house.
Yeah, I could do this for my house. But I understand. They wanted to experiment with doing something that sounded like National Public Radio. I wanted to do something that was like people having a conversation, but I wanted to research like something in history. Like we did an episode. My dad worked for a birth control company my whole life. So when I was a kid, he started working in a birth control factory. And so the episode, which was cool, was me interviewing my dad and doing some man on the street stuff, asking people about birth control and interviewing my dad about what was that like? And it was the early 80s, and you raised us Catholic, and at church they talked about how birth control was evil, and how did you feel about that? So it was cool. So when I say The History of Sex, it sounds weird that my dad was a guest, but I don't mean like people telling their personal sex stories. I mean looking into history and looking at like sex laws, like Beck, to quote Beck, blue laws, like places where prostitution and sex work was legal. And I feel like, I'm sorry, I'm babbling, but I feel like it could work with this kind of format where if I narrate on my own sort of the general issue and talk about the moment in history, because I love history, and then invite a guest in, and like now you would have to be one of the first guests because you'd be like, I went through this.
I remember
and
that.
go like, what do you think about this story? And I don't know. I think that could be cool.
You don't need a network. You don't
I
need
was
a
like,
network.
oh man, maybe it's a bad idea. And
Unless you want to maybe make money on it, then maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I just like hanging out and talking to people.
Yeah.
And then if people like the show, then you can do it live and meet people in the like. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate goal, is to just sort of, I don't know, create an audience where they're interested in the topics that you're interested in, and then let's just have this symbiotic relationship where I can be myself, and that it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm on network television doing it, but there's a steady group of people that enjoy these conversations, and then
this kind of falls into what we're talking about.
It really does.
Yeah.
It kind of does.
Maybe you'll use this part.
I think I might. Basically, I mean, the reason that I wanted to have you on was I wanted to talk about the Geoffrey Owens thing, and you had. I mean, you have a book about basically that touches on it, and you've also posted about it online. But basically, the story, in case anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, a former cast member of The Cosby Show, Geoffrey Owens, was recently, there was a news story about him, kind of exploitative news story about him, where he was found to be working at a Trader Joe's in New York, I believe.
In Jersey. I'm actually wearing a jersey in Clifton, New Jersey. He's since, by the way, had to leave the job because of all the unwanted attention. A woman named Karma something took a photo, and I don't know if she sold it to the press or posted it online. I saw that there were quotes from her where she had spoken to a reporter. I don't know if it was if she spoke to someone at the Daily Mail. The story circulated the most in the U.S. because of a tweet that linked to a FoxNews.com story about it.
Fox News kind of looked like they were the ones using it as clickbait.
Yes. And then, a friend of mine who works at Fox News was like, that was a website decision. It's not something that the network broadcast did. And I was like, I understand, but to me, I'm talking about the same news outlet. Yeah. So I'm going to say Fox News. Like, having worked in the media, I understand that oftentimes there are divisions between, you can look at Fox itself as the corporation, right? Like, there's a big division between the news side and the creative and entertainment side. You can look at a grocery store, for example, and sometimes there's a huge division between departments. Like, sometimes grocery does not love like the meat department. I used to work in a grocery store. So anywhere you go, someone's in a doctor's office, the receptionists do not get along with the nurses, or they don't. So I get that. But to me, the reason when I put it up, I quoted, it as being from Fox News is because Fox News, the outlet, was disseminating it. Now, apparently some of the anchors or whatever on-air personalities talked about, like, how they didn't, want to shame this person or whatever, and it wasn't their decision, and that's fine. Yeah. In my feeling, that's where they're working. But the Daily Mail picked it up too. Other places picked it up as well.
It sort of became this, I mean, it's kind of what happens on the internet where, like, every day there's a new thing we're talking about. So for a few days there, basically the idea was that this man who was on television had no business working a 9-to-5 job, because I think the assumption was that because he was working at Trader Joe's, that implied some sort of fall from grace,
which is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, yes, he did play Eldon on the Cosby Show, and he was great. I had a crush on Eldon when I was little. Ooh. I remember it. I was a little kid. I was like 5, and I was like, Eldon's cute. But he continues to be a working actor with IMDb credits from real network shows. Not that a show that you make that's not a network isn't real, but I'm saying if we're measuring success based on network TV, I mean, he's worked pretty consistently over the years, and he teaches Shakespeare. He's done Shakespeare in the Park. Like, this was not, I don't think, a full-time gig, but even if it was, that's cool too, because to me it pointed to a fundamental misunderstanding on the part of some people in the public about the economics of a career as an artist. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And that's why it's a perfect topic for your show.
And it's come up so organically throughout the run of the show. There's been several, because on this show I interview people that are usually in the range of having been doing comedy about 10 years, some a little less, some a little more, but then there's this cusp of people that is starting to find success in television. People have developed shows, done sets on late night television. They're starting to get the balls rolling in that capacity of being on television in a bigger spotlight. But then also what I'm finding is that with that, there's also this assumption that even I make of this person's on television. Oh, they're done. They've made it. That's fine. Everything's set up for them royally. And then you've come to find out talking to them. No, I had Alan Strickland Williams on.
Heard of him.
What
a handsome devil. I texted him the other day.
He did a set on Conan O'Brien, toured for a year on that credit, and basically that sort of dried up and then for a moment he's driving Postmates, so he has to make the ends meet that way. I had Caitlin Gill on. She was a writer for a show. She was invited to like the VIP premiere party of the show she wrote on. And at that party where there's celebrities and it's glitzy, she is contemplating whether or not she should steal appetizers so that she can eat later in the day. Like, just because you've got a job in the entertainment industry, it does not mean you've hit the lotto. It just doesn't mean that.
Not at all. I mean, I think people don't know what the SAG day rate is. And even if you're in SAG, so even if you're in the Screen Actors Guild, and you get into the Screen Actors Guild once you do enough work on shows that are scripted as opposed to your reality shows, once you... And I feel like this is going to sound like I'm telling you this, but you know this. I just mean for people in the audience listening,
just for context,
I would have no idea. I know you know this, but I didn't have any idea about this until I got into this business. So once you've done enough, like let's say you're an actor, you're scrappy, you're a waiter, you're so excited, you're working in New York or LA, and you get an audition somehow. Like somehow an agent sees you and is like, "You're great. I saw you do some play you put up with your friends." You get an agent, and they send you out for auditions, and you book a Burger King commercial. Awesome. And you have a small part, and you're going to do it for a day. And, I forget what the day rate is actually for SAG now, but it's like a few $100 or something. Yeah. I forget. It's, it's great for a day of work, but it doesn't last your whole life.
But you have to take it in context. You always have all of this. You have to take into context of you can get a big windfall, but then dry spells.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's say you get paid. I don't know. Let's say your role is big enough that you get paid. Let's think optimistically, $10,000.
Yeah.
That's not a day rate. That's like you've done a few days of work. You're getting residuals. Like that's great. So let's say you make $10,000. So out of that $10,000, you have that agent who saw you in the play and thought you were great. 15% goes away. You have to pay taxes on it, which could be 25% of it. Like, who knows? I don't know. It could be less, depending on how great your accountant is. You have to pay for that accountant, unless you're doing your taxes yourself. And if you're doing your taxes yourself, you're probably going to get fucked.
Can I just, postscript, if you are in any level of entertainment, doing your taxes is terrifying.
It's a terrible idea.
It's awful.
It's awful.
Just I need to say that just as a rant.
No, absolutely. It's confusing because it's not like your regular job, your regular day job. So then that money goes away, and so whatever we're down to of that $10,000. Well, let's say you're to make a living as a TV and film actor, you have to go to auditions, and that means you're probably in New York, Los Angeles, or Chicago. You might be in another city where there's a lot of production, like. If you're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, there's so many productions there, you may make quite a nice living that stretches far there by doing work there, right? So I'm not saying that other cities don't have work for actors, they do. But you're probably living in New York or LA.
On the coast.
So you're living in a city where I live in a studio apartment that's 550 square feet in a very hip, groovy neighborhood. I live in Silver Lake. Mm-hmm. And I have a steal of a deal, and it's $1,400 a month. And I don't have a dishwasher. I don't have parking. I don't have central air or central heat. I have a wall heater and a window unit. I stepped over someone who was asleep on my front yard yesterday because I wanted to help them out, and then I realized they were just intoxicated after a night at the bar.
Oh, and they don't deserve it.
They had a much nicer, because I was like, oh no, is this a homeless person who needs, in my mind I'm like, do they need help accessing services? No, it was a drunk guy with a very fancy designer backpack.
Oh,
and a really fancy, like a nice Dodger hat, like nice. And I was like, all right, they just needed a nap because they're having a great time. But anyway, so in context, like take that 10 grand, which is down to whatever after you've paid taxes and commission and everything else. And then you are, maybe you're paying rent like mine or less or more in one of these cities where you've decided you have to live so that you can be an actor. And then you've got your utilities. Maybe you've got car payments. Maybe you go to the doctor because you're human and you get sick sometimes. Like, what my point is that it doesn't go as far as you think. So just because somebody gets a national commercial or gets a few days on a sitcom or whatever, and also factor into account that let's say somebody does book a series regular role, right? Like, shows get canceled.
Yeah, there's no guarantee in any of this.
Cosby Show was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, and then also the other wrinkle with Geoffrey Owens is that his entire residual income was completely eradicated by the actions of his boss.
If he was getting residuals or the appropriate amount of residuals, too. Because we can assume, that Felicia Rashad's getting residuals, we would hope, until the end of time.
Yeah.
But, like, let's say he was. He's probably not getting the sweet cut that he has a cast member. He's not, there weren't a ton of episodes that were Eldon episodes.
Yeah.
And so he was there, he wasn't. And then, because, his boss, probably unknown to him, was a serial rapist. 20, 30 years later, it
turns out.
And then people, not a lot of networks are showing the Cosby Show anymore.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, any revenue that he could possibly have been getting from that was pretty much wiped out.
And I believe I had read that he's married and has a kid. I don't know to what extent that's true or not, but it's important to note too, he's been working, like he was on Elementary last year. He's done a lot of network TV shows. He's done independent films. He's done Shakespeare in the Park, which is extraordinarily prestigious in New York. Like he's done things off Broadway. I think he's done on Broadway. But the fact that he took on a grocery store job is no indication of his talent, or it's no indication that he's not good at managing his money.
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, I applied for a Trader. I work full time as a copywriter now, but I applied for Trader Joe's jobs, didn't get them because it's competitive. Like, lots of people with way more grocery experience than me
tough gig.
who are way better at it got it. And you can, if you have enough hours, you get benefits, you get discounts on groceries. Like, that's a dope-ass job.
Yeah. Well,
I still roll in there and I'm like, ugh.
It shows that, I mean, it honestly, having that 9 to 5 shows, if anything, that he's responsible with his money because he sees, because a lot of people in Los Angeles and probably anywhere in the entertainment industry, you do have to have this sort of suspension of disbelief. You have to sort of trick yourself into, because there's these dry spells where you're not making anything and you kind of have to just assume something's on the way. It's a very bold step to tell yourself, I'm not going to risk that. I'm going to go for the safe bet of a 9 to 5 job. Like he could easily have just done like, oh, my pride, I don't want to.
Or my entitlement.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people in this business who think that because they chose to finger paint pictures about their feelings for a living, that they somehow deserve fame and fortune.
Yeah.
There are more people, I think. I think that's a minority of people in the business, but I do think in the arts, I shouldn't say the business, I should say the arts in general, I would say a majority of people realize, oh, I have to work. I'll do what I need to do to be able to do my art, whether I consider it on the side, or I will often say to people when I teach writing and coach writing and write about this topic a lot, and I'll say, your art is your job. Your art is your job. It's what you were called to do. If you believe in an outside calling, or if it's an internal motivation, whatever it may be, whether you're put here to do it or not, your art is your job. Anything else you do is your side gig. And so, and that doesn't mean you don't love your side gig. I'm going to be an artist until the day I die.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean my art's great. It doesn't mean it's even good. It doesn't mean anybody else fucking cares about it or that I will ever be paid for it. And when I do get paid for it, half of the shit is luck. I'm a white woman who grew up middle class with parents who started making a lot of money, who were able to pay for her to go to college in the United States. I was born here. I have a lot of privileges that are not afforded other people who would love to be authors. And I'm an author and a comedian and a copywriter. And I have a master's degree from an Ivy League university. And I have a lot of fancy shit in my life.
Yeah.
So I say all this in the context of seeing who I am and how easy relatively it's been for me in many ways. And so I will still be an artist until I die because that's my personality. That's who I am. And I think for anybody listening, you're an art. If you feel the urge to make art, that's not something everybody feels.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of born with that. So if you were born with the congenital defect or blessing,
the curse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably from when you were little, did you like even if you liked a ton of other shit, did you like telling stories? Did you like writing? Did you like acting? Like, did you feel moved to do any of that shit?
Yeah, I just sort of stumbled into it. You know what? The thing is that I find as I go through life is that I take for granted a comfort level with writing or a comfort level with speaking because you talk to other people who are terrified at the very idea of public speaking or I work as a copywriter too sometimes.
Oh, cool. Let's go sell some shit.
All right. But to have somebody ask you to write something that to me just seems like, well, that's like a sentence. How could you not write that? It's just a difference in the way people approach their life. Some people just don't have confidence in that skill, and I'm lucky enough to have it. But I for so long, I've taken it for granted, this whole art brain weird thing. I thought everybody had it.
Well, my guess would be, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, that it was to an extent inborn, but that you probably at a young age were quite good verbally and probably got praised for that. I did. We usually praise children when they're unusually good at something or they read a couple grade levels above so we tend to lean in the like flowers who lean in the direction of the sun. I think we as children tend to lean in the direction of that which brings us warmth and praise and affection. And so because my parents were always impressed that I could read early or that I could speak early, I leaned into that. If I had been great at sports like my dad dreamed, I would have leaned into that, and I fucking tried, but
Wasn't in the cards.
I would have leaned into that too. And speaking of my dad, I mean, my dad's great with finance and budgets. I suck. I get myself into debt over and over again, and I'll talk to him about it sometimes, and he understands now what's going on. But when I was younger, I would see the confusion because his mind just works the way that you and I can probably look at a paragraph and eliminate the stuff we don't need. That's what he can do with expenses. Very instinctively. It's very natural, and he enjoys it.
It's very weird. That's always comes up, that weird parental divide sometimes too, because I'm sure you had this at some level too of like when you say, I'm going to go for this, there's no amount of reassurance you can give your parents. There's no plan you can really provide them outside of the broadest, like, well, I'll move here and maybe I'll meet this, like you just go for it.
There's some delusion involved in a career in the arts, and that understandably may provoke someone to ask, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And I understand that because I'm trying to think of something comparable, but my brother is a nurse and he works in business now, and if he so desperately loved, bird watching. Yeah. And he said, Sarah, I love bird watching so much that I'm going to move to the middle of nowhere where there are no healthcare industry jobs for which I am qualified. I am going to work like hauling scrap metal. I don't love it, but I'm going to do it because it leaves me with time to do my bird watching. Yeah. I'd be like, what the fuck? And I think that saying to people, I'm going to move to a city with this art form that I love, And the most bananas people, I will say, are opera singers. Because opera singers, nobody's fucking paying for opera.
No.
I've met a few in my day, and I'm like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I've sold everything you can imagine. I mean, it's such a niche passion.
Yeah.
Most people can understand. They might laugh at you, or they might go, oh, yeah, you think you're funny, you're going to be a comedian, but they've seen comedians on TV. See a fucking opera singer on TV like once in a while.
It might get to the point, though, because I feel like our society is gradually devaluing a lot of its art forms.
Oh,
Music is, you can't really make a living doing that the way you could when CDs were a thing. Comedy, I think people are getting paid less and less for their jobs, and there's also a hell of a lot more of them. I feel like at some point, maybe just being a comedian will be like an opera singer. It'll be like this niche thing that you go to.
That's so specific. Why do you do that? Well, it makes me think of how I have a friend who's now an executive producer and a writer on a network show, but he used to act fairly frequently when he was younger. And I remember he booked a series of commercials. He was in 3 different commercials as part of a campaign for a particular nonprofit that had gotten a huge grant. Mm-hmm. And so they were spending top dollar on their commercials for their talent. So let's put that in context. But my friend's mom told me that she paid for his whole college education at a private 4-year school with the proceeds from those 3 commercials.
Yeah.
They didn't air forever and ever, you know. That series of those 3 commercials probably were on air for 2 years total. But and this was an expensive school. It wasn't the most expensive, but it was expensive. And it was just with the residuals, they aired it enough. And so she was able to pay off the loans that she and her ex-husband, his dad, the loans they'd taken out, they paid them off.
That's crazy.
And now people get paid a lot less for commercials, like the going rate, even when it's something like that. Because it's a lot easier to just get a celebrity to do it or to spend less money and put it on the web.
Yeah. I don't think this is just through the entertainment industry. I think it's probably just our economy as a whole. There is an incentive to get much more for much less. Mm-hmm. I think devaluing workers is probably just a thing that we have to find a way to get around. But I think it speaks to, with the Geoffrey Owens thing, I don't think that America's mentality on earnings has caught up with where we are in 2018. People still think that this man who made money in the 80s is at that level of achievement financially than now. And it's just not true. And I'm wondering, how do we... I'm going to put a big burden on you.
Okay.
How do we...
Do it. I did a yoga class last week. I'm very limber right now.
How do we convince a society? How do we convince the population to view people's earnings accurately? How do we erase this mentality? And I think it's also kind of generational. Like, how do we erase this mindset of like, oh, this person's on television, they're a celebrity, Dunzo made it.
I think you share.
Yeah.
Well, I think you share as much information as with which you feel comfortable as an artist. So, like, I shared what my rent is, and that I write, that I have a day job, as well as, you know, writing books and doing comedy stuff and acting sometimes. And so I don't expect everybody to do that. I also think that for those of us in entertainment, there's the understandable fear that someone will think we're a loser if we admit that we have other gigs. But what I have found is that more people open up to me, and I make more friends, and I feel more comfortable and happier. I wrote a book called Real Artists Have Day Jobs, and in it was... should I hold for sound?
No. This is all fly on the wall. It's very verite.
Well, I wrote a book called Real Artists Have Day Jobs, and it came out in 2016. And it was inspired by an essay that I wrote for Medium, medium.com/@Sara Benincasa, which I had written for free. Sometimes I write stuff for them for free. Sometimes I enable, now they have a partner program, so I'll enable the partner program thing. So I'll make residuals, if you will, off it. Other times they will commission me and pay me to write something. So I'm just sharing that so that if you're not familiar with medium.com, you kind of know how the breakdown of that goes. Most people who are doing it are using it just like WordPress or any other platform. But at this time, I didn't get paid for this one. I don't think. I think I just wrote it. And it went viral because what tends to go viral is something that strikes a nerve with people. Like the Geoffrey Owens story went viral because a lot of people got upset and were like, no, we all work hard. That's honest work. People, I think, had a nice reaction. But when I wrote Real Artists Have Day Jobs, my point to the essay and then the book is that at one point I said something to the effect of, I've had plenty of day jobs in the past. I have no reason to believe I won't in the future. And indeed I do now because... And it's not that that I haven't had success since Real Artists Have Day Jobs came out. I've done TV since then. I've gotten columns for national publications and things like that. But I got tired of waiting for all the freelance checks. And so for me, it's very helpful to explain to people, and it can take a minute, but sometimes as a writer, as an actor, you may have an advocate working for you, which I do in the world of books, and I do in the world of acting, and I do in the world of TV writing. But as a writer for magazines, as a writer of articles, it's me. And if a company decides that they're not making their books aren't balanced, so they're going to wait 3 months to give me a check for $200 or $500, that's a problem. And so I think being clear about that with people and being clear about the fact that if you get offered a movie deal, right? You get offered, okay, cool. You wrote a movie. This is awesome. This is so exciting. Fox Searchlight is buying it or whatever. They're gonna fund it and distribute it or whoever is. Let's say that gets sold and your car got repoed yesterday. They don't come to your house and give you a cash bucket of $38,000, which is the WGA minimum for a low-budget independent feature. And if you get that $38,000, the low-budget independent feature minimum right now for WGA, approximately $38,000. Again, agents 15%. Do you have a manager? 10 or 15. You got a lawyer? That's 5. And you should have a lawyer because they will fuck you. And so you need a lawyer. So that all goes away. Plus you got your taxes. Plus built into your contract is probably going to be something like, okay, you get this much up front. You get this much when you deliver the outline. You get this much. So when you see news that somebody gets a deal, and that's true for acting, it's true for a lot of shit, it doesn't mean they're suddenly rolling in it. There's a lot of unsexy bits that happen behind the scenes. And I know I'm babbling in response to what you asked, but I think... You just have to, if you feel comfortable, if you're listening and you're an artist and you feel comfortable, you're an artist who's getting paid for art, don't be afraid to share a little bit about that with people. I think so. I think that us as the entertainment and artist community, I think we need to stop making assumptions about other people's success. I think it's also a symptom of there's a little professional jealousy, 100%.
And I think that feeds into it. But I think that we should all be comfortable in the thought that very few of us are at that upper plateau of I've made it, it's fine. We're all in the same boat, and we all should be a community about it. But then I also think that, and if you're out there listening and you're not in the artist community and you want to support artists, I think we need to start subscribing to newspapers. We got to start paying people. Pay for if somebody has a Patreon. If you're like, fuck, I'm so tired of hearing their stupid ads and Patreon, you'll get this. It doesn't matter if you don't want the Patreon incentives or the Kickstarter or whatever. Throw them some money. I love wonget.com. Love it. It's an old political blog. I've written there on and off over the years. I throw in $10 a month. Yeah. So what? Just a little bit collectively to support the art that you like. I mean, it's not like you've set this person up on Easy Street. It's just a matter of we need to start giving value to especially digital things. Yes. Digital art and digital writing, digital music has all just it's become this idea that it's free. And I don't want to be all Lars Ulrich on everybody, but please do. I expect a great Lars impression where you just get very angry. Well, you should all pay. I don't know if that was a good Lars. That might have been a good Lars. I think that kind of was.
because your facial expression was pretty great. Like,
I'm gonna go buy some art.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Pay for shit, man. Like, it's cool. Just like, if you want to think of it as a charitable donation that for some reason you can't write off on your taxes, fine. Think of yourself as a patron. That's the whole concept of Patreon is like, you too can be like, I'm a DC without the murder. You can fund an artist. Why not? You know, like, throw down now and again for it. If you watch a bunch of ASMR videos like I do, relaxation videos on YouTube, like a lot of those YouTube creators have Patreons or they have PayPal.
Yeah.
Throw them $5 a month or every 2 months or just at Christmas or Hanukkah, Diwali, whatever. Diwali.
Literally every holiday.
Every holiday.
National Cat Day.
Doesn't even matter if they celebrate the holiday. It's Rosh Hashanah when we're recording this. I'm going to go give somebody $5.
But I think that... And honestly, and because we're broke, I understand too, because it also sounds like we're begging for money. But support the arts verbally, compliment, push people along, because a lot of the people that you find joy in their art probably are second guessing themselves constantly.
Yeah,
and they don't mind the little push forward, whether it be a couple of bucks or whether it be a compliment or whether it be a rate, review, and subscribe on.
You can do that. It actually matters. Matters.
Just, I think we should all be a little bit more kind to the artists in our lives.
Yeah. And you can find, and it doesn't have to be somebody you know personally. I know a lot of people, don't necessarily know somebody who is trying to make money for their art.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I grew up out in the country, but I grew up in the country near, like sort of within like an hour and a half of like 2 different big metropolitan areas, beauty of New Jersey. And I grew up with, my mother's family was full of artists. They were all working class people, but they were painters, and they weren't necessarily expecting to make money from it. They're painters, actors, clowns, like all kinds of cool shit. And so I think because of that, I feel fortunate because there's also so much art like around the Delaware River, around New Hope, Pennsylvania, and Lambertville, New Jersey. There were a lot of art galleries. There were people moved there as they got squeezed out of the cities, or they simply didn't want to live in a city. So this is like the 80s and 90s. So I feel really lucky. Like if there's a gallery near you, or if there's some kind of a craft fair, that's art. Yeah. Quilting is art. There was enough quilting where I lived that there was a store that's still open. It's a quilting supply store with quilting classes. Yeah. Like there's a lot and I didn't grow up off like a train line or a main highway or anything like that, like a big highway. So it's not like you couldn't just hop on a train and go to the big city or something. It felt very far away, even though I was like an hour and a half away. So and it was a big like farming community too. But there were artists, absolutely, in there. The most artistic place I've ever lived was Las Cruces, New Mexico. Because
I can see that. I can see that.
There were all these people who would not call themselves artists necessarily, but their front yards were the most elaborate, incredible sculptures.
I know
and
exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's that aesthetic. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I was like, what the hell is this? Is the most landscaped, like amazing thing. It was just kind of in people's blood, or like in Appalachia, where I went to college, eventually where I finished college. There were a lot of people who outside, I was in hippie enclave of Asheville with lots of artists, but out in the countryside, like wherever you go, you will find people who've been, who paint. Music is a huge, just natural part of culture down there. I mean, it's amazing. There's artists wherever you are. You can support them. Like you'd really be surprised.
Yeah, art is everywhere. Look for it, find it,
give
throw
it
a couple
money.
bucks its way. Just and this is for everyone. It's not just for Sarah and I, but throw a couple bucks.
Give us money, too. Definitely give us so much money.
Throw a bone to the artists in your lives. Now, Sarah, we have to segue into the exit strategy portion, although I feel like we've already been touching on it.
I feel like we have. Exit strategy also sounds like a podcast about suicide.
There's already podcasts about suicide.
There was this best-selling book called Final Exit back in the day by Jack Kevorkian, I think, which was very like controversial, and it was about assisted suicide. It was about like medical assisted suicide. I like to make everything about suicide. Not really. That actually, I should add, that's part of what I do is I speak at college campuses about mental health and suicide prevention. So I'll bring it back to the artist thing. Like, if you know somebody who identifies as a comedian, an actor, a writer, a singer, a dancer, like whatever it is, they probably have 8 different jobs.
Yes. Well, I made a list of just what I could think of off the top of my head of what you've done.
Oh, cool.
You've been a writer, a performer, comedian. You've been author of 4 books. You've hosted a radio show. You've been a political journalist. You're working on a new book right now. You've got a laundry list of things that you've done, and I'm sure I'm missing stuff.
I used to be a high school teacher.
See?
Yeah. And I teach and I coach writing. Some people don't want to say teacher about, like, I think it's an adult thing. They're like, this is my writing coach. I'm like, okay. Or like whatever, a writing helper.
So you have your thumb in a lot of pies in the entertainment industry. But now I got to strip that all away. I got to take away entertainment altogether so that we can talk about if you didn't have entertainment in your life, if you were not pursuing the writing and performing, what would you do with your life? What would be your exit strategy?
Does copywriting count? Is it too creative because it's writer?
I'm gonna maybe I'll accept it later.
It's creative.
But
we should throw it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna push you in another direction, and then we'll see if we can get it back in there.
I would be some kind of my job would be helping people access resources to make their life better, which could be doing something that has to do with my interest in sustainable agribusiness and agriculture.
Okay.
So literally could be running a farm stand, but as we've established, I'm not great with money. So I think I probably would be a job placement coach.
Yeah.
Like, I remember watching the movie Dave. Do you remember the movie Dave?
Vaguely. It's the one where someone's a president?
Yeah, I think Kevin Kline looks like the president, and he loves his job running a job placement agency, but he makes money on the side being a presidential impersonator.
Being the president.
The president's a piece of shit and has like a heart attack and is in a coma, and the administration concocts this secret plan to get Kevin Kline in to pretend to be the... I'm like emotional because I remember watching this with my family and like loving it so much. I'm like, it's so beautiful. Oh God. And I think Ben Kingsley plays the vice president who the real president hates. Yeah. But the vice president is actually awesome, but they just constantly are painting him as a douchebag to the press and like not letting him. It's like the opposite of Mike Pence. Like, imagine if Mike Pence was great. And so they're like, oh, we don't want the vice president to be president. Oh, fuck that guy. So they get Kevin Kline, they get him in there and have him just pretend to be the president.
Just be the president as a placeholder. Yeah.
Yes, but like the job that he loves, this is why I'm getting emotional. It's that like my aunt, who's my godmother, who I love, is a job placement coach. And she works with adults with autism, and she's great. And she places people through a school in, where are they? In Central Jersey. Through a school in Central Jersey for teens and adults with learning disabilities and who are neuroatypical or neurodivergent, with learning differences. She helps place them in job settings, and she's fucking awesome at it. And, like, I would do that. I think it would probably be that's very specialized. So I don't know if I would be specialized in that area. Probably, because I do love teaching. So probably that would be part of it. Or I would do it generally. Yeah. But I like that aspect of sitting. I'm talking a ton now, so you wouldn't know. But I do like to sit and listen and figure out what somebody wants. Yeah. And then figure out how to make that happen.
So basically, it's kind of a coaching kind of thing, but it's very
connecting.
Specialized.
It's like my friend Baratunde Thurston, who's a New York Times bestselling author. He's a business consultant. He's a comedian. He's a lot of things, a host. He's sold shows himself. So Baratunde is a great example of someone who I think of as a connector. And I think I am as well. But I think of Baratunde as being a connector on a higher level, because his connecting is like, oh, here's this famous TV person, and here's this like genius expert who like is worked inside the government, and here's this. And I'm like, do you need a guy who's good at shoveling? I can help with that.
I know someone.
Yeah. For me, it's a very, this is funny because Baratunde is like a black dude who grew up in D.C., but I'm about to say I think it's a very Sicilian thing to be like, I know a guy. It's a very like Jersey thing. But it's really not. It's not even a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think when you grow up, I think it's a personality.
I think it is definitely a personality type.
It's a personality
for sure.
type.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like I get my agent, Sean, my college speaking agent, Sean Lawton, lives in Boulder. And I was recently chicken sitting for him. I was babysitting for chickens. It was very exciting.
Okay, that's another episode.
Chicken sitting. And we were driving around. He was showing me the lay of the land because he and his wife, Darlene, who's a blogger and a friend of mine, they were going on vacation. So I was going to take care of the chickens for my agent and his wife, who's rad. And so I was talking to him, and I was like, Sean, like, I think in another life I would be a publicist or an agent because I just love the connecting. And he does too. Part of what he loves, he has the business aspect. He is good with money. But part of what he loves is connecting. Like he reps like Common and like Blair Imani and Bree Newsome and all these amazing voices. And part of what he loves to do is to connect a college campus population that would really benefit from these voices and figure out how to make it work so that it's like advantageous for all parties. And I like that. I like that.
It's a very interesting personality trait too, to have that. I think a lot of people have it at some level, but not everyone's really good at it. And not everybody have the wide swath of people. I think we're kind of lucky, you and I, because we know so many entertainers that it's like I can kind of keep my ear to the ground, and if somebody needs a specific type of person, whether it be writing or performing, it's always gratifying to be like, I know someone that might be able to help.
It feels good.
Yeah.
It feels like it's not exactly being a tastemaker because some people really love that, and I think that's cool too, where you're like, you must know this artist. This is brilliant. It's not so much that, it's like it's putting a puzzle together.
Yeah, it's kind of producing, honestly.
Yeah, it is. It's that kind of it's probably part of what makes you and I good in a sense at copywriting, because copywriting requires not just a writing skill and creativity, but the ability to stand in the shoes of the recipient of the message, who could be a consumer, a donor, and think about the ask, as is often said, the ask that we are making. It's psychology.
Yeah.
I would love to be a yenta, like a girl or an old woman. First of all, I'm not Jewish. Second of all, I'm not an old woman yet, but I feel like I can fix both of those things.
Okay.
I want to be an old yenta who makes marriage matches, but I suck at matching people up for dates. I'm real bad at it. I'm not great at picking people to date myself, but I'm real bad at picking people for other people to date. But I'm really good at matching up friends and at matching up business collaborators.
I think that you can, just you don't have to be Hitch. Just be a yenta
That's
for.
my dream. I know.
Yeah, you can be a yenta for professional reasons.
I
for
love that
creative
shit.
reasons.
It's so
honestly,
fun.
Friendship is a worthwhile thing.
Magic.
It doesn't have to be love. I mean, it could
I
just
know.
be like meeting somebody that you'd really click with.
Maybe they'll grow into friendship.
you never know.
Maybe like and we'll grow into love. Like I just am like, but now that I think about it, it's like way more, if I'm talking about income, it is way more marketable to match people up for business stuff. And I am pretty good at that. Like I'd probably be a good headhunter, corporate headhunter, and that. So sorry, I just like said a million things, but
I think we've kind of honed in on it. Whatever you're doing, you're connecting A to B.
Yeah,
basically,
I love that.
Is what's going to happen.
I'm like, yes. I get legitimately excited about things like if I recommend someone, because I don't recommend tons of people to my agent Sean or to my agent Scott, who's my book agent, or to my management, or I just signed with it. See, there's like a million people will go like, who's in your life? Okay, so as an author, a comedian, and a copywriter, I've got my boss at work at my day job, who's rad, and tolerates my outside interests, encourages them even, because she knows that I actually am quite passionate about my day job. In fact, I'm vastly more passionate about it than I thought I would be. I sort of weirdly fell in love with it. It's kind of embarrassing. But so I have, my boss at my job, and then I have who I work for, and then people who I work with or who work for me would be like my lawyer, my book agent who does my book deals, my TV, film, lit agent who I just signed with last week, who would do deals to like if I'm adapting a book for TV or like blah blah. And then there's my management, who is the idea with management, is that they oversee it all and help you figure your shit out. My lecture agent for colleges, I might have left somebody out.
I should tell the listener that Sarah came to the show with an entourage of about 15 people.
Yeah.
They're in the green room right now.
Let me say this. Also, I make what is considered in our country and certainly in this city, but in the country as a whole, I'm considered a middle class income.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I present that information so that people know that, like, you know, you can be somebody who has books out on shelves. You can be somebody who's been on TV, like, you know, like Alan, like a million people, you know. You could be somebody who has all these reps. And if you're an aspiring artist and you're like, oh, if I just got an agent, then I could be rich. Like, no like, it's not, like, you know,
it's not how it is anymore.
It's not.
If it even was to begin with.
Yeah, and it's not, and you shouldn't expect that either. You know, you got to do most of the work. Yeah. Ideally, you partner with people. Ideally, this doesn't always happen, but you partner with people who are excited about your work, because they have that connector personality. So that not only do they want to connect you with good work and good work with you, they want to make money too, and then everybody makes money. Like, that's ideal.
This kind of sounds like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, it is a pyramid scheme. No, we're in a weird cult. Like, we for sure are, where we're like, we have to live here. There's going to be earthquakes and fires and floods. And, you know, this is just...
but if you help me, I'll help you.
This is what happens. We're in, like, a weird mafia cult.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 37 now, and I think it took me until... Part of writing Real Artists Have Day Jobs was that I was reminding myself of the things I need to remember. The best lessons I've learned. So in that way, it was a selfish endeavor. I also got paid for it. But it took me probably until I was 35 to become... It took me writing the book to become genuinely happy with where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it's not that everything has been easy since I wrote that book came out. Like, I've gotten California sober since, which I've been told is also Colorado sober, which is like I quit everything but weed. I've, you know, that's been tough. I've gone through breakups and heartbreak. I've lost people I love. Like, I've gotten into and out of and into debt. I've fucked up. But I've also, it's not that writing that book of kind of my different philosophies made everything perfect. But it did help me, and I think this is true for anybody who has an art project inside them that they really feel like they have to get out. I think actually getting it out into the world helps you be grateful for what you have and for who you know. And maybe it can also help you realize, like, some people are going to be with you only when you're up, but some people are going to be with you only when you're down, because they need to feel superior to you. Yeah. And that's something that I wish I had known before I entered the artist's path, the artist's way, if you will. That's something to think about too, you know?
Yeah. It sounds like it's just sort of given you a perspective on who you have, what you are, who you have. In your life, sort of, in general, you know what you value and you know what's more important now.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean if tomorrow somebody was like, you have to quit your job at the organization that you love working for a boss you love working for, with coworkers you really love working with, for the most part, you have to quit your job because you're going to suddenly be on TV, the star of a show, and I'm for whatever reason, and here's $2 million a year, I'd be like, okay. Like, I'm not trying to lie and pretend that I'm like, well, it's just so noble, and no. I'm doing what I'm doing.
I'd turn it down.
Like, but it's also, but then if I did that, there would be struggles there too. Yeah. You're kind of never done. I think we're always trying to move our way up the mountain, and I don't think we ever, if we ever got to the top, we'd be bored. I've seen people I know with the wildest success imaginable, get to a plateau where they could just coast, and they're like, fuck, I have to do something else.
Yeah. You don't want to be complacent ever in your life, no matter what you do. Somebody
great to read on this kind of subject matter is my friend Josh Radnor, who was one of the stars of How I Met Your Mother. And in the show, his character meets the mother, and then she dies, and then he marries Aunt Robin. But, like, so Josh is a musician. Josh is an actor. He's a musician. He's a writer, really good writer. And I'm like, can you please like just write a book immediately, which I feel like he's such a multi-talented person with creativity in so many directions that it's like silly to ask to like demand that because you like somebody and like their work, be like, do this one thing. Like, I think he has many books in him. I think he's a very gifted teacher. And he is someone to like look up on Twitter or look at his website or subscribe to this like newsletter that he writes. That's somebody who's really seeking and always like, who's achieved a lot of success. Like, I don't know what his finances look like, but I'm betting they're pretty sweet. But that's somebody who like then was like, okay, and started a band with Ben Lee and is writing and is doing so much stuff and has done stage work. And like, that's not somebody who rested on his laurels. And I also think about like my friend Thomas Sadowski, who's an actor and super talented and has done tons of shit. Like, he's constantly doing interesting, creative things, and he's always doing nonprofit work and working to elevate. And it's not just some actor ego thing. He genuinely gives a shit because this is an aspect of his life about which he is very passionate. Yeah. So I like to look at people who are... Margaret Cho is a great... I mean, I've admired Margaret Cho so much my whole career. Like, long before I thought I'd ever do comedy. She never settles. Margaret doesn't coast. Yeah. You know, I don't know her that well personally. I've worked with her a few times. I like her very much. But she's she could just be touring, doing stand-up all the time. She's been doing it since she was 16. But she's done TV shows. She's done, like, burlesque shows. She's done film. She's a really good actress. She continues, I think, to work on acting. Like, these are three people who, like, if you don't know them by name, you'll probably recognize their face. And I don't know that. I think they're all in their 40s, and they have never. I don't see them stopping trying new shit. Yeah.
Well, look at you connecting. You gave us like a whole bunch of names. Now we've introduced the audience to a whole bunch of people. Connector Sarah's already going down.
They're all good writers.
Exit strategy path.
I know. Well, I should just work for them. I should just be like, do you guys need...
You're an advocate.
A publicist? And they'll be like, no. We don't. But we're doing great. And
we have ones that are very good at it.
That's cool. Can I have some nachos? Awesome.
Well, I think we got to move on. We got to take a little break. We're going to come back. You're going to choose the sponsor for this week's episode. This is your opportunity to sell out big time.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love that.
So this will be like where you can give up all your ideals that you've espoused this entire show.
And it could be any brand that I like.
Yeah, start percolating.
Oh, my God, I love shopping.
Start thinking about the check you want coming in the mail. We're going to be right back with more Sara Benincasa in a bit. Sarah, we're back.
Oh, hi. Hello.
Welcome back.
Oh, hey.
We've been talking all about artistic integrity and finding what you like in life and hanging on to it and really the spiritual journey of art. Now we're going to throw that all away.
Yes.
We're going to sell out big time. Now, somebody from your sponsor might be listening to this, and they're going to say... Oh, my God, Sara Benincasa with that verified check mark.
Thank you.
Is going to be... we could get her. We could
Only
get her
on Twitter, not on Instagram. Thanks, Instagram. Get on top of
things.
We
could get her for some commercials. She can speak about the sponsor. Now, every episode we have the guests choose the sponsor. This week is your responsibility. Sarah, who is the sponsor for this week's exit strategy?
The sponsor for this week's exit strategy is Auntie Anne's Pretzels.
Okay. We are throwing the gauntlet down on Wetzel today.
Fuck Wetzel.
Whoa, that is the slogan.
That's right. Auntie Anne's Pretzels. Started in Amish country. Fuck off, Wetzel's Pretzels.
Yeah, I feel like Wetzel's was probably just created in a factory or something. Or like
created
a lab.
In hell.
Yeah, a lab in hell.
Certainly not in a place where people still anachronistically churn butter.
Well, you know, you got to keep that tradition alive.
It's true.
All right, let's talk Auntie Anne's. Why? First off, what is your go-to when you go to the Auntie Anne's? Are you getting in those little nugget things? Or are you going full pretz?
Okay, I'll tell you. Now, I grew up by Pennsylvania Dutch Farmers Market in Flemington, New Jersey, where people who were not the old order Amish, real old school, but people who were like your more liberal, progressive Amish, if you will. Car drivers, electricity users.
They went on the Rumspringa or whatever.
Rumspringa and never came back.
Came back.
It was, honestly, they may be Mennonite. But anyway, it was Pennsylvania Dutch people who would come from Lancaster County and drive 2 or 3 hours to come and sell their wares in Flemington, New Jersey. And they had the best pretzels ever. Still, they're better than Auntie Anne's, I'll be honest. I'll undercut my sponsor and say Pennsylvania Dutch Farmers Market. But they never had the pretzel nuggets. That's an innovation of the modern times.
Yeah.
So I will go for the nugs because usually I'm in airports a lot, like going to colleges to speak. And, it's some heavy top subject matter. So sometimes I like to self-soothe with a carb. So I'll do the nuggets. Also, they can be very easy to bring on a plane. If I'm really feeling needy and I'm like, you know what, Sarah, your nutritionist encouraged you to take breaks with food, and you can just say, hey, you know what?
For it, yeah.
Sugar's not good for me, but I'm going to have this adventure. I will do a cinnamon sugar.
Okay.
I will admit to you, I did a Wetzel's pretzel recently. I was coming back from my grandmother's funeral in Jersey, and I was like, I've really had a moment. Where's Auntie Anne's? They didn't have it. So I was like, all right, I'll slum it, have Wetzel's. And it was like a Wetzel's, like, sort of a pizza thing. I was like,
is that the one where they just, like, put pepperonis on it? And it's like,
yes, they're like, it's a pizza with handles. It's like, go fuck yourself, Wetzel's. But I will eat this. And the people at the Wetzel's place were nice. But truly, Auntie Anne's, delightful. I love the Auntie Anne's station at the train station in Boston. I love Auntie Anne's. I'll hit it up at LAX. I'll hit it up at EWR. I'll kick it at JFK, LGA. I'm about it.
Like the terminal. Terminal C.
Love
Terminal
it.
3A.
Oh, CLT. Charlotte. You're in Charlotte, North Carolina. You're going to the Tequilaria, maybe, which used to be a Cheers-themed restaurant. Maybe you're going to go to the gift shop next to it that has T-shirts that say hot mess but blessed. I own several. Maybe you're going to go to the Body Shop kiosk at CLT that's been there forever. Why not get your ass past the Chili's, too, to fucking Auntie Anne's?
Auntie Anne's.
Now, Auntie Anne's would not support this endorsement.
No, there's a lot of swearing in it.
There's a lot of swearing. They don't do swearing. They have tweeted at me. They follow me now because I will tweet about them.
Okay.
Listen, I have a sordid history of lustful love with various products like Cheesecake Factory. They've sent me a free cheesecake before. Pop Chips. Pop Chips sent me a bunch of free Pop Chips.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. They do it because they think that I'll tweet about it, and they're right.
Oh,
I'm
you'll get
shameless.
a return on your investment?
Listen, if anybody wants to send me free shit for Instagram or Twitter, I'll do it. And I'll tell you, when I'm tweeting about it, I'm leaning in. I'm not criticizing. I am enthusiastic. I'm over the top. I'll make other people take pictures with it. I love it. I'm not afraid.
So does that mean that you have tweeted, you had correspondence with Auntie Anne's? Have you
Yes.
gotten a free product from them yet?
Not yet, but I am
so
hoping.
This is your white whale. We got to get you
white whale because I have gotten
a free pretzel.
Free stuff from Whole Foods 365.
Okay.
I love their conditioner, herbal mint conditioner. It's great. You can do it as a leave-in. I'll flip out about it online, and sometimes people send me stuff. Pop Chips, big box of Pop Chips.
Yeah.
Brought it to a party, made everybody eat it, took several photos with strangers.
That's called being an influencer, guys.
Yeah, it's called. Actually, I'm a micro-influencer. I'm going to take it back to the marketing world. I'm a micro-influencer.
Micro-influencer in the pretzel community.
When you across social have when you have 50 to 100,000 followers across social, you're a micro-influencer.
Yeah.
So usually nobody's paying me. They're just giving me free shit.
But with surgical precision, a company could utilize the Sara Benincasa brand.
Listen, you want feminism, you want body positivity, you want spirituality, you want cursing, you want somebody who's pretty bad at dating. but consistently, for some reason,
we got a Twitter
tries.
handle for you.
Listen,
we got a Twitter handle for you.
Seriously. You know, I didn't know this, but my friend Natalie Morales, who's an actress and a delightful human, I guess she used to have, as like an experiment, I haven't talked to her about this, somebody else told me, she like used to have a separate social media account as an experiment to see if people would just send free stuff to it.
Yeah.
And like it worked. I think people were just like, here's a bunch of stuff.
Oh, it's the Wild West out there.
It's fun. You just got to get... I mean, listen, I have shopping issues, so I gotta.
So you've talked about the Auntie Anne's. Before we move on, I just want to know: do you want to quickly throw out a preference for what you'd like for free, or do you want to leave it up to them? I
would say Auntie Anne's, if you're listening. First of all, Auntie Anne's does not curse. That is just me. These views do not represent Auntie Anne's. This is just all me being a longtime fan since I was a little kid. I would like a gift card. I would like if there's some sort of an at-home option for making them at home.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
That would be pretty dope.
It wouldn't travel well.
Yeah, I'd have a party. If you guys do frozen stuff, I would have a specific pretzel party because I love pretzels.
I would love to come to this pretzel party, by the way.
No, you'd fully be invited.
Thank
we
you
could
so
do a
much.
picnic on my front lawn and just invite, like, and it's a tiny front lawn, and sometimes people drunkenly fall asleep on it, as we've established, but I would just have a lot of pretzels. I just love pretzels so much. I love the history of pretzels. German,
this is in her
talk
blood.
about it. I love it so. I love pretzels the most. Pretzels are the highest form of bread.
I'm with you on that. So, Auntie Anne's, you've heard it here first. Mm-hmm. There will be a forthcoming pretzel party. So go ahead and check out Sara Benincasa's Instagram and Twitter.
I'll invite my more successful, famous friends. And they won't come, but I'll ask them to.
At least one other micro-influencer might be involved.
Might show up.
We might be able to get.
You one.
We might be able to get the dog that is on Instagram that goes to restaurants.
Or the grandson of Air Bud, probably.
Yeah, so basically look forward to that.
Yeah.
Speaking of your social media accounts.
Oh, yes.
Now, a lot of people are listening to this. They might be liking what you're throwing down.
Oh, gosh.
Is there anywhere you want to point the people new to the Sara Benincasa brand?
Yes, I would say, as you know, I am now a micro-influencer, and if you would like to be a part of my Instagram, it's instagram.com/SarahJBenincasa.
HTTP
www. It's at Sara J. Benincasa, which is SARA J Ben, as in a man named Ben, BEN, IN, Casa, CASA, like a house. It's like a young man named Benjamin in a house. Sara J. Benincasa. And that's also true on Twitter. But as we all know, Twitter's dying because it is a tool of fascist oppression. But, you know, you can still send me stuff there.
It's still Pretzel Party.
Yeah, it's still a Pretzel Party. But, you know, I would say go to the gram, because on the gram, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get inspirational statements. You're going to get occasional reposts from interesting, thoughtful places. You might get a political thing now and again. You're going to get a butt picture now and again. You're going to get me and my friend taking photos in nature. You're going to get mirror selfies that various people will make fun of me for. You're going to get a mix of narcissism and altruism, and that's where the Sara Benincasa brand truly lives.
You might have to tone down some of the butt pictures, though, if we're going for Auntie Anne's.
That's true. I would never put a butt next to a pretzel.
Yeah, and if you scroll through the gallery, there will be a fine buffer between the butt and the pretzels. Just know that.
And my Instagram stories, dynamic, thrilling, revolutionary. My dad said, "You take so many pictures of yourself." And I said, "Yeah, it's not my fault I didn't get hot until like middle age.
Now.
Like I'm 37 and like there's an intense glow up happening here. People are noticing, Dad. You need to get on board and affirm it." He was like, "I don't even know what you're talking about."
So if you want to know just a little bit more than Sarah's dad, go ahead and give her a follow.
He doesn't follow me
online. Ooh boy.
He's not on Instagram. I told him not to join Instagram.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
I was like,
the
don't
parents
do it.
on Instagram, it's not.
My mom's college roommate Patty. What's up, Patty? Patty is on my Instagram and gets to see all my weird shit. She can totally like tell my mom. My mom claims to not be on Instagram, but I'm like, I know you have a creeper account. I don't know how. I know. I just know.
So follow Sarah, follow Patty, and you also go to Barnes and Noble, look for the Benincasa names. You got a couple books up.
I do. Yeah, you can wherever books are sold. If you're interested in checking out, there's a site called IndieBound, which kind of functions like Amazon, but for indie bookstores. Like, you can buy my books on Amazon. That's great. But if you are somebody, like maybe there's not an indie bookstore in your hometown or you don't have time to go, you can go to this site called IndieBound, look up the books you want, and the indie bookstore nearest you that participates will ship it to you.
Oh, hell yeah.
And you can just call a store and just be like, can you order this for me?
Yeah.
So,
look at that.
Wrapping it
right back to throwing a couple bucks at the small guy.
Oh, yeah.
Support artists, support indie bookstores.
I love supporting a
Sarah,
small local biz.
You are connecting us with indie bookstores, with artists of all names, and pretzels, most importantly.
You should write a book called I Have the Best Decorating Sense, because I don't know if everyone here has been to your house. Everyone who's listening has been to your house. That would be terrifying if that were true.
That would be weird. We could have a live episode here.
Awesome. Like, everything I walked in and I was like, this element, it's retro, it's in, it's new, it's old. I love it.
Thank
a lot
you.
of framed nature things.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
I'm going to start
welcome.
an Instagram for my house.
You fucking should.
I should. I'm a micro house influencer.
You really should. I'm a tiny house influencer. Do you ever look at apartment therapy?
No, because then I would just be like,
stressful.
I gotta do more stuff.
It's
to
very
my house.
overwhelming for me. It's okay.
All right. Well, Sarah, we gotta head out of here.
That's true. We do.
Thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed talking about the realities of the art world that we've chosen.
Yeah, this was really great. You're a great interviewer and a wonderful voice, and you should do voiceover work all the time. Someone should hire you immediately.
Tell the world. I will see you at the pretzel party, but until then, we gotta go. We'll see you all next week here on Exit Strategy.
Bye.
Goodbye.